being unbroken by failure. This is Brian Cain with the Mental Performance Daily Podcast, and he was 7 years old when his family lost their Indiana farm. He had to drop out of school and go to work. 2 years later, his beloved mother passed away. When he was 22 years old, he started a business. Within a year, it went belly up and bankrupt. He ran for the state legislature and lost. Someone hired him to run a store, but fired him a few months later. So he applied to law school, only to be rejected. A friend loaned him money to start another business, and within a year, he filed for bankruptcy. It took him 17 years to pay off his debt. Again, he made a run at politics, and he finally got a rare taste of success. That year, he took office and he got engaged. It seemed that his fortune was finally starting to turn around, but on the eve of their wedding, his fiancée died of typhoid fever, and he plunged into a suicidal despair. He spent the next 6 months in bed. He recovered enough to get back into the political game, but was defeated. His friends tried to cheer him up by pushing him into an arranged marriage. It would be the great disaster of his life, consigning him to 23 years with a difficult wife. Again, he ran for public office, and he suffered yet another defeat. Then his 3-year-old son, Edward, died. After a season of grief, he finally won an election, only to lose his bid for re-election. When he limped home from Washington, D.C., he ran for some minor office in his home state, only to be rejected again. After licking his wounds for 5 years, he ran for the U.S. Senate and lost. Sympathetic colleagues nominated him for vice president. He finished dead last among all the candidates. 2 years later, he picked himself up off the floor and ran for the Senate a second time. Again, he was defeated, giving him the dubious distinction of being the biggest political loser in U.S. history. It's a miracle that 2 years later, he somehow found the courage to run for America's highest office. In 1860, after decades of political failures and personal setbacks, Abraham Lincoln became the 16th president of the United States. But his euphoria was short-lived. As the country moved towards a civil war, he was vilified across the South. Newspapers lampooned him, calling him the guerrilla from Illinois. When the Union dissolved, there were calls for the president's impeachment. His generals refused his orders, and his cabinet members plotted against him. His 11-year-old son died, and his wife descended into madness. In the end, he was denied the pleasure of savoring his greatest triumph when he was assassinated only 6 days after the Civil War ended. As he stood by Lincoln's deathbed, the Secretary of State whispered, "He now belongs to the ages." 2 days later, on Good Friday, preachers across America eulogized Lincoln as the savior of our nation. If you've gone through a tough and long stretch of defeats and are ready to throw in the towel, you might want to remember Abraham Lincoln's story in the light of something difficult. The two most powerful warriors are patience and time. So whatever's holding you back, whatever's got you being beat up right now, whatever's keeping you from finding the energy to move forward, remember the story of one of our nation's greatest heroes and greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln, to just keep moving forward. Adversity is your advantage. Failure is feedback. Keep moving forward, unbroken by failure.
Thanks for checking out Mental Performance Daily with Brian Cain, an IRONCLAD original. If you like the show, be sure to leave us a rating, review, and comments. We'll see you tomorrow.